Mother-in-law. Hidden cameras in our bedroom. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to check for hidden cameras in my own home. But there I was, at 2 in the morning, standing on a chair with my phone's flashlight, scanning every corner of my bedroom like some paranoid detective in a bad thriller movie. Let me back up. My name is Rachel. I'm 32 years old, and up until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had a pretty normal life. Normal job, normal apartment, normal marriage to my husband Tom. Sure, his mother was, let's say, involved in our lives, but I always told myself that meant she cared. I mean, that's what people say, right? You should be grateful when your in-laws want to be part of your life. I should have known something was seriously wrong when Tom came home one evening and casually mentioned that his mom wanted to drop off some gifts for us while we were at work. This wasn't unusual. Margaret, my mother-in-law, was always bringing us things. Kitchen gadgets we'd never use, decorative pillows that clashed with everything we owned, and strange herbal supplements she swore would change our lives. "She has our spare key, right?" Tom asked, scrolling through his phone without looking up. "Yeah," I said, stirring pasta on the stove. "But maybe I should come home during lunch. I could use a break anyway." Tom finally glanced up. She specifically said she wanted it to be a surprise. You know how she gets if we ruin her surprises. I did know. Margaret had once given us the silent treatment for 2 weeks because Tom accidentally saw the Christmas presents she'd hidden in our coat closet. So I agreed. What could possibly go wrong with letting your mother-in-law into your home unsupervised? Everything. Everything could go wrong. The next day at work dragged on forever. I kept thinking about what Margaret might be dropping off. Maybe she'd finally found those organic cotton sheets she'd been obsessing over. Maybe she'd bought us another set of matching pajamas like we were 7 years old. I texted Tom around 3. "Did your mom text you? Is she done at the apartment?" "Yeah, she left about an hour ago. Said she left something special for us." When I got home that evening, everything looked normal, almost suspiciously normal. There was a basket on our kitchen counter filled with gourmet coffee, fancy chocolates, and a card that read, "For my favorite couple," in Margaret's loopy handwriting. Tom came home 20 minutes later and we both admired the basket. "See?" Tom said, popping a chocolate truffle in his mouth. "Just normal mom stuff. You worry too much about her." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it. The apartment didn't look different, but it felt different. Like someone had been in our space, touched our things, breathed our air. I chalked it up to general anxiety and tried to let it go. 3 days passed. Normal days. Work, dinner, Netflix, sleep. Repeat. But on the 4th night, I couldn't sleep. I'm talking wide awake, staring at the ceiling, counting sheep, and getting angry at the sheep kind of insomnia. Tom was snoring softly beside me, completely dead to the world. I got up to get water, and on my way back from the kitchen, I noticed something. A tiny red light, barely visible, coming from the bookshelf in our bedroom. It blinked once, then disappeared, then blinked again. My heart started pounding. I stood there in the doorway, frozen, watching that tiny red light blink in the darkness. Blink, 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 like a tiny electronic heartbeat. I walked over slowly, carefully, like I was approaching a wild animal. The light was coming from behind a framed photo of Tom and me from our wedding day. I reached out with shaking hands and tilted the frame forward. That's when I saw it. A small black device, no bigger than a USB drive, wedged between the frame and the back of the bookshelf. It had a tiny lens on one end and that blinking red light on the other. A camera. Someone had put a camera in our bedroom. My stomach dropped to my feet. I felt like I was going to be sick. My mind raced through possibilities. A break-in? But nothing was stolen. Our landlord? That seemed unlikely and definitely illegal. And then, like a cold slap across the face, I remembered. Margaret had been here, alone, with our spare key, with access to every room in our apartment. No way. That was insane. Mother-in-laws don't install hidden cameras in their children's bedrooms. That's not a thing normal people do. I was being paranoid. Maybe it was some weird baby monitor left by the previous tenants. Maybe it was a carbon monoxide detector with a weird design. Maybe I was losing my mind. But I couldn't shake the feeling. I picked up my phone and did what any reasonable person would do at 2 in the morning. I Googled hidden camera bookshelf. About 15 million results popped up, and there it was in the first row of images, the exact same device that was in my bedroom being sold on multiple websites as a discreet home security camera. I felt like the room was spinning. I sat down on the floor, my back against the wall, and tried to process what I'd just discovered. Someone was watching us. In our bedroom, the most private space in our entire home. And if my suspicion was correct, that someone was my husband's mother. I wanted to wake Tom up immediately. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the camera out the window and call the police. But instead, I did something else. I left the camera exactly where it was, went to the bathroom, and threw up. When I finally calmed down enough to think straight, I made a decision. Before I confronted anyone, I needed to know for sure. I needed to find out if there were more cameras, and I needed to figure out how they worked and where they were sending footage. I spent the rest of the night searching our entire apartment. I was systematic about it. I checked every room, every shelf, every decorative item, every corner, and I found them. 5 more cameras. One disguised as a phone charger in the living room, one hidden in an air freshener in the bathroom, one built into a pen holder on our kitchen counter, and one inside a decorative clock in the hallway. 5 cameras total. 5 different angles of our entire apartment. Our bedroom, our bathroom, our kitchen, our living room. Someone had turned our home into a surveillance state. By the time the sun came up, I was exhausted, furious, and absolutely certain of who was responsible. I'd checked the timestamps on the cameras. They'd all been activated 4 days ago, the exact day Margaret had been in our apartment alone. Tom woke up around 7, stretching and yawning like it was just another normal Tuesday. I was sitting at the kitchen table, still in my pajamas, surrounded by 5 hidden cameras that I'd carefully removed and placed in a row. "Morning, babe," he mumbled, shuffling toward the coffee maker. "You're up early." "Tom," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "we need to talk." He turned around, finally noticing the cameras on the table. His face went through several expressions in severe succession: confusion, recognition, more confusion, and then something that looked like dread. Are those cameras?" "Yes, hidden cameras, 5 of them, all installed in our apartment 4 days ago. Want to guess who put them here?" Tom's face went pale. He sat down across from me, picking up one of the cameras and examining it like he'd never seen anything like it before. "This can't be real," he whispered. "It's very real. Your mother was the only person with access to our apartment on that day. These cameras were activated the same day she was here. Tom, your mother has been watching us. In our bedroom, in our bathroom, everywhere." I watched Tom's face carefully. I needed to see his reaction. Was he going to defend her? Was he going to make excuses? Was he going to tell me I was overreacting? He put the camera down on the table and dropped his head into his hands. "I need to call her," he said quietly. "No." My voice was sharp. "I need answers first. Did you know about this?" His head snapped up. "What? No, of course not. Rachel, do you really think I would let my mother install cameras in our bedroom? I don't know what to think anymore." Tom pulled out his phone and called Margaret before I could stop him. It rang 4 times before she picked up. He put it on speaker. "Good morning, sweetheart." Margaret's chipper voice filled our kitchen. "You're calling early. Is everything all right?" "Mom, I need you to be honest with me. Did you install cameras in our apartment?" There was a long pause, long enough that I could hear Margaret breathing on the other end of the line. "I can explain," she finally said. My blood ran cold. She didn't deny it. She didn't sound surprised. She just said she could explain, like this was a totally reasonable thing that had a totally reasonable explanation. "Explain?" Tom's voice cracked. "Explain why you put cameras in our bedroom, in our bathroom." "I was worried about you two," Margaret said, and I could hear the defensive edge creeping into her voice. "You've both been so stressed lately, and I wanted to make sure you were okay. I needed to check on you." "By spying on us?" I finally spoke up. "By watching us in our most private moments? That's not concern, Margaret. That's a violation." "Rachel, honey, you don't understand. I'm Tom's mother. It's my job to make sure he's safe and happy. And frankly, I've been concerned about our marriage. I needed to see what was really going on." I felt like I'd been slapped. Concerned about our marriage? What are you talking about? You two barely talk to each other anymore. Tom looks exhausted all the time. I see how you look at him sometimes, like you're annoyed just by his presence. I needed to know if my son was okay. Tom stood up so fast his chair fell over backward. "That is not your place to decide, Mom. You don't get to spy on us because you have concerns. You could have talked to us like a normal person." "I tried talking to you. You always say everything is fine, but I know my son, Thomas. I know when something is wrong." The conversation went on like this for another 20 minutes. Margaret defended herself, Tom went back and forth between anger and disbelief, and I sat there feeling completely invaded and violated. Finally, Tom told his mother we needed space and hung up. The silence in our apartment was deafening. "I'm so sorry," Tom said, and I could see tears in his eyes. "I had no idea she would ever do something like this." "What are we going to do?" I asked. "We're changing the locks today. She's never getting a key to our place again, and she's not welcome here until she gets serious help." I nodded, but inside I felt hollow. This wasn't just about the cameras. This was about trust, boundaries, and the realization that my mother-in-law had been watching intimate moments of our lives. What had she seen? What had she heard? The thought made me physically ill. Over the next few days, Tom tried multiple times to talk to his mother about getting therapy. She refused. She insisted she'd done nothing wrong, that she was just being a concerned parent, that we were overreacting. She even tried to turn it around on us, saying that if we had nothing to hide, we shouldn't be upset about the cameras. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn, because when I finally worked up the courage to check where those cameras had been sending footage, I discovered something I wasn't prepared for. The cameras connected to an app on a phone, and yes, that app was on Margaret's phone. We confirmed that when Tom drove to her house and confronted her in person. But when we checked the access logs, Margaret's wasn't the only phone that had viewed the footage. There was another user, another account, another person who had been watching us. Tom's father, Derek. We'd assumed Derek was just going along with whatever Margaret wanted, the way he'd done for their entire 40-year marriage. But it turned out he'd been an active participant. He'd been watching too. Both of them, sitting in their living room, watching their adult son and his wife like we were characters in a reality TV show they'd produced. Tom was devastated. His relationship with both of his parents essentially ended that day. We went no contact. We changed our locks, our security codes, everything. We even considered moving, but decided we shouldn't have to leave our home because of what they'd done. We also reported them to the police. Turns out, what Margaret and Derek did was illegal. Very illegal. Installing hidden cameras in someone's home without their knowledge or consent is a crime. So is using those cameras to record people in places where they have a reasonable expectation of privacy, like bedrooms and bathrooms. The legal process was long and emotionally draining. Margaret and Derek got lawyers who tried to argue that they'd been concerned about our well-being. But the law was clear. Concern doesn't give you the right to violate someone's privacy. They ended up with restraining orders, fines, and probation. Tom went through a grieving process. He'd lost the image he had of his parents. Sure, his mom had always been overbearing and his dad had always been passive, but he never imagined they'd cross a line like this. We went to couples therapy to deal with the breach of trust and the trauma of feeling watched in our own home. It's been 8 months since we found those cameras. 8 months of healing, of rebuilding our sense of security, of learning to feel comfortable in our own space again. Some days are harder than others. Sometimes I still find myself checking corners for blinking lights. Sometimes Tom gets quiet and distant when he thinks about what his parents did. But we're getting through it, together. And you know what I learned from all of this? Sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who respect you the least. Sometimes family isn't about unconditional support, it's about power and control. And sometimes, the hardest thing you can do is set boundaries with the people who are supposed to respect them automatically. If you're going through something similar, if someone in your life is crossing boundaries and calling it love, please know this. You're not overreacting. You're not being too sensitive. Your privacy matters. Your autonomy matters. And you have every right to protect yourself, even if it means protecting yourself from family. As for Margaret and Derek, I heard through mutual friends that they still don't think they did anything wrong. They tell people we're ungrateful, that we've cut them off for trying to help, that we're keeping their son from them. But Tom and I know the truth, and that's enough. Our apartment feels like ours again. We redecorated, bought new furniture, created new memories in every room. We're not just reclaiming our space, we're reclaiming our privacy, our dignity, and our right to live without surveillance. The cameras are gone, the locks are changed, and we're finally free to live our lives without wondering who's watching. If you made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. If you've experienced something similar, you're not alone. And if you're someone who thinks it's okay to violate someone's privacy because you're worried about them, please hear this. Concern is not a free pass to cross boundaries. Love is not an excuse for control. And family doesn't mean you get unlimited access to someone's life. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if this story resonated with you, and drop a comment letting me know your thoughts. Have you ever dealt with someone who crossed major boundaries in the name of love? I'd love to hear your stories. Take care of yourselves, and remember, your home should be your sanctuary, not someone else's reality show.